Like and follow if you love horror. Focus, Theodore. We're a little beyond self-pity. She could hear the tone in her subordinate's voice. Did it tell you how the door, this portal, is opened? Sarah did her best to excuse me. Sarah did her best to interpret the probable meaning of each snippet of information. It says it needs to see us to see it. That we will be its eyes. I think so it can figure out how to express itself, to take form. He thought about it. The thing that was Simon is quickly growing a kickball-sized bioluminescent sensory organ that replaced his whole face. What it calls eyes or seeing may be nothing like sight at all, and I'm sure it's not echolocation or electroception. Sight may be the closest thing it has to compare to what it's doing to perceive us. Teddy released the mic and turned around to look back at the creature, this time inquisitively. Perceive us, he said under his breath and cued the mic again. You know, this thing has been staring directly at me since I locked myself in here, and when it wants to, it can talk to me or read my thoughts. Maybe that's what it means by sight. It said something to the effect of, it needs to see us so that we can see it, which might explain its perception. Sarah considered something for a moment. I'm thinking of a shape. I want you to think of a star, then ask it what shape I'm thinking of. Teddy cringed slightly, then turned to the creature. Before he spoke, it said, Star. It sees the star, Teddy reported with a shrug. Hold tight. Sarah released the mic and turned to the rest of the crew. I'm not perfectly sure how it works, but if everyone remembers, it seemed to know what we were thinking. That's right. Robert pointed his finger at Sarah. It spoke to all of us, saying things that seemed random at the time, but when it looked at Enos, it spoke French, and when it looked at Liddy, it knew she was thinking about going for the mooring hook. But it didn't know the shape you were... No, that's Enos. But it didn't know the shape you were thinking about. Enos started connecting some dots. You said you were thinking of a shape, but then told Teddy to think of a star. Teddy reported that it saw the star, but you weren't thinking of a star, were you? Teddy also said it needs to see us so we can see it. Packer's inquisitive mind was resparked by the discussion. She regurgitated the information as she made a similar connection. It has to be looking at us to read our minds or to speak to us. That makes sense, Robert added. If it could communicate telepathically, why not talk to us right now? It seems to like gloating. Teddy said it gets off on us trying to bargain for our lives. Why not taunt us right now? Why not laud its superiority over us as we speak? Blind spot, Sarah nodded. It means we can sneak up on it. It means so much more than that, Enos postulated. He wasn't even watching the hall behind him anymore. Simon, Liddy, they're like, he thought about it, they're not eyes, they're more like receivers. It's pulling the information from its environment from us. Not using Simon and Liddy to see, it's using them to use us to see. What kind of creature is like that? Robert asked. Nothing we've ever encountered before, Packer answered. That means one of us has to be on chains to see it, what it calls the door, Sarah said to no one in particular. We could end this. Parker let go of her instinct to fight. If we depressurize right now, every fish in that damn bay, everything and everyone it had contact with, destroyed under 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. We could end this right now. Everybody thought it over. Packer was right. She was the readiest to fight, but she knew it was a risk all of them could control for the good of the humanity. For a moment, everyone was silent. No, Sarah took a deep breath. Then it just waits down here for more of us. It won't even take long. They'll send a survey team to try and figure out what happened. If they slip by without its influence 10 years later, there'll be another habitat down here. Maybe a bigger one. Maybe a larger crew. And it will have learned from its mistakes from the first encounter. If one of us doesn't get up there with the data, humanity will just come back down here, and they won't know what they're facing. No, we have to kill it, stop it, or at the very least survive it to deliver our observations. Teddy's voice came back over the receiver. Hold on, Teddy. Sarah only cued the mic long enough to let Teddy know they were still with him. It doesn't know about our plan. We feed Teddy the necessary information to distract it, then we attack. Everyone nodded in agreement. She cued the mic up again. Teddy, why isn't it trying to infect more of us right now? I think it might be waiting for Lydia to completely convert, he responded. We clearly don't pose much of a physical threat to it. With two, it could easily corner us. Even if we lock ourselves in a habitat, it's only a matter of time until we run out of food or life support. It's waited this long, a couple of days for supplies to run dry probably isn't much of an issue. It knows we'll get desperate, and it was more than forward with the fact that it likes that. Described conditions of Liddy right now. She wanted to know how long they had until the creature could do that. Teddy turned around and nervously eyeballed the creature. The membranes over its face had thinned significantly. The whole growing apparatus resembled a cloudy orange eyeball with 5 irises. The irises focused and narrowed in and out independently of each other, one occasionally straight off to the side observing the environment, but always returning to focus on Teddy. He didn't want to get any closer to the creature, and even the impenetrable pressure glass was no comfort. But he swallowed hard and slowly approached. It was difficult to see around the creature as it matched his movements as closely as possible. However, once he was close enough, a simple lean to either side of it gave him a better look at Lydia. She was prostrate, seemingly in shock, her whole body tense. Her auburn bob cut was stringy and matted to her head. The teddy fish hung off her stomach much the same place Simon's did. Her eyes were wide, staring blankly at the floor ahead of her. He could see the tips of her fingers were now pointed, like they'd started forming claws. He returned to the mic. It doesn't look long now, he said. She's already growing claws. Okay. Sarah took a minute to think. She needed Teddy to distract it. Tell it we're willing to negotiate. Tell it we know it needs one of us unchanged. Are you fucking sure? Packer assumed the only advantage they had over it was that it didn't know what they might know. Sarah released the mic. Trust me. Teddy turned around and looked at the creature. Yes, it said, but it will not bargain for who. You must bargain for who. Theodore, this is your chance. Betray your friends, and you could be that who. You could suspend your suffering. Teddy cued the mic and tried to think of a way to convey what it just said. I think it wants us to decide who survives. He wanted to tell Sarah it wanted him to betray them, but the uncertainty of how he felt was the only thing he had. He also wanted to let her know what he deduced about the uncertainty, but that would give it away. As long as he was uncertain, he could effectively keep the creature guessing. This thing is pretty clever, she said. Wait till we're desperate, let us turn on each other, stand by and reap the rewards. She considered her next words carefully. If it tries to wait us out, we could become a danger to each other and potentially hosts will die. She released the cue and turned to Packer and Robert. Go now, run in. Throw it right at the lab window, as close to the creature as you can. Throw it as hard as you can. Make sure to break the glass on impact. Robert departed up the north tube. Packer went down the south tube. Quickly and quietly, they made their way to the north and south entrances of the sub-bay, respectively. That's a pretty good point, Teddy turned to the creature. Humans are fairly fragile life forms. You run the gambit of potentially hosts injuring or even killing each other. No. It wasn't convinced. There is no escape. You could all turn on each other right now. Kill each other and guarantee the survival of your species. You won't. You could all easily launch the rats, decompress the bay. No, your will to survive betrays